She thought her birthday would be different this year. But instead of laughter and friends, a young girl sat alone at a long, empty table, her tiny hands gripping a slice of cake no one came to share. Her father was one of the most powerful men in the city. Yet in that moment, she'd never felt smaller. Then, a man she'd never met walked up, and what he did turned that silent room into a storm the whole town would talk about. Because this wasn't just about a lonely birthday, it was about a truth too many still choose to ignore. For most people, birthdays are a day of joy, laughter, and love. But for Emily, they had always been complicated, born with a condition that left her in a wheelchair. She had grown used to the stares, the whispers, the pity. Her father, a high-profile CEO, ensured she had the best of everything except for the one thing she wanted most, genuine friendship. This year, he insisted she attend the company's grand celebration, believing it would make her feel included. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and polished smiles. Waiters floated between the tables like clockwork, the air rich with the scent of expensive wine and roasted delicacies, but beneath the glamour there was something else. An unspoken hierarchy, a sense that everyone knew exactly where they stood and where others did not. Emily couldn't quite name it, but she could feel it pressing in on her from all sides. Her father had promised she'd have fun, that people would be thrilled to see her. But now, seated at a long table in a room full of celebration, she found herself more isolated than ever. And somewhere deep down, she sensed that tonight's loneliness would not be the only wound she'd carry home. The music swelled through the grand ballroom, but to Emily, every note felt hollow. She sat at the far end of a linen-covered table, her birthday cake a small, perfectly frosted confection placed gently before her. Guests passed by, their eyes flicking to her for a moment before sliding away, as though looking to long might invite discomfort. Her father was caught up in endless conversations with investors, leaving her stranded in a sea of polite avoidance. Laughter erupted in clusters across the room, but not here. Here, there was only the faint clink of her fork against the plate. Then she noticed them, 3 men in tailored suits, standing near the buffet. They were laughing together until one of them nodded in her direction. The others turned, smirking, their eyes sweeping over her like she was a curiosity on display. One mouthed something to the others, and they all chuckled. She didn't need to hear the words to know they weren't kind. No one sat down, no one invited her over. It wasn't just about her wheelchair, she'd felt this chill before, the one that said, "You don't belong here." And then she saw him. A tall, sharply dressed black man stepped into the room. His presence sent a subtle ripple through the crowd, not because of who he was, but because of what he was. Heads turned, conversations faltered. Emily saw the micro-expressions, the slight narrowing of eyes, the cool appraisals. It was the same quiet rejection she felt now, directed toward him instead. Their eyes met for just a second. She expected him to look away like the others. But he didn't. Instead, he began walking toward her. Every step seemed to stretch the air tighter. Guests turned their heads to watch. A woman whispered to her husband. The 3 men near the buffet exchanged looks, one shaking his head as if to say, "Don't even think about it." Still, he kept coming, and Emily's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the unshakable awareness that something was about to happen that would make this night unforgettable. He stopped beside her table, the silence heavy. Emily could feel every pair of eyes in the room on them. The birthday candles flickered weakly, their light swallowed by the weight of expectation. He rested his hand on the back of the empty chair, scanning the room. The shift was small, but Emily saw it: pursed lips, tightened jaws, the deliberate turning away of shoulders. Then he pulled out the chair and sat down. The reaction was immediate. A glass clinked too sharply, someone coughed. A woman leaned to her companion, whispering behind a frozen smile. The 3 men from earlier chuckled again, their voices carrying just far enough. Emily's pulse quickened. The hostility wasn't loud, but it was thick in the air. In their eyes, 2 kinds of outsiders had just aligned themselves, and some of them couldn't bear it, but he didn't flinch. He cut into the cake and took a slow, deliberate bite as if daring anyone to challenge him. Emily felt gratitude swell in her chest, mixed with a sharp awareness of the risk in that small, defiant act, because here, in a room of power and privilege, sitting beside her wasn't just kindness, it was rebellion. And rebellions, she knew, always came with a price. No one confronted them. No one said a word, but the quiet wasn't peace, it was pressure, thick and unspoken. Conversations picked back up, forced and hollow. Emily's father returned, his smile polite but strained. He glanced at the man beside her, then at Emily. He didn't ask what had happened, not here. But his eyes held something that might have been guilt. When the night ended, Emily wheeled toward the exit, the man walking beside her. They didn't speak about the stares or whispers. They didn't need to. They both knew what it meant to be treated as though they didn't belong, her for her disability, him for the color of his skin. Days later, she thought about the moment he sat down. Such a simple thing, yet in that room it had been a statement. It had challenged the invisible boundaries that so many pretend aren't there, and it reminded her of a truth she could never forget. Prejudice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it hides behind polite smiles, behind harmless jokes, behind invitations that never come. The world will tell you we've moved forward. But moments like that prove some walls aren't made of stone. They live in hearts, in habits, in the quiet ways people decide who belongs. So the question isn't just, will we tear those walls down? The question is, when we see them, will we have the courage to sit down anyway?